Mozart, Table of Contents.
A musical journey.
A musical journey. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
Mozart, a true genius.
Dr. Sidney Soclof. Dr. Sidney at earthlink.net. 2021.
Narration by Dr. Sidney Soclof.
Zoe Phonemes.
And Nathan Koltov.
These are the 5 famous personalities that we will be studying.
Wolfgang Mozart, Stephen Foster, and Elvis had tragically short lives of 35, 38, and 42 years, respectively. But Irving Berlin had a long life of 101 years.
Their accomplishments and fame were very strongly influenced by the technological advances of their time.
They all wanted to achieve fame, fortune, and freedom of creation.
Mozart lived in the pre-modern era in his day. The way to achieve fame and fortune was to obtain patronage from a wealthy aristocrat, and especially the emperor.
Unfortunately, that did not give him freedom of creation. So he wrote concert and opera music and got money from the ticket sales.
Mozart was a prolific and influential composer of the classical era.
His output of over 600 compositions includes works widely acknowledged as pinnacles of symphonic, chamber, piano, operatic, and choral music.
Mozart is among the most enduringly popular of European composers, and many of his works are part of the standard concert repertoire. He is generally considered to be one of the greatest composers of classical music.
Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was born to Leopold and Anna Maria Pertl Mozart in the front room of Getreidegasse 9.
Here in Salzburg, the capital of the region ruled by the Prince Archbishop of Salzburg.
Salzburg is now in Austria, but then was part of the Holy Roman Empire.
Wolfgang was the last of 7 children, of whom only 2 survived. He was born on January 27, 1756 in this house where the Mozart family had apartments on the 3rd floor.
The Salzburg Cathedral, German, Salzburger Dom, is a 17th-century Baroque cathedral dedicated to Saint Rupert of Salzburg. Wolfgang was baptized here the day after his birth.
Wolfgang would later serve here at the Salzburg Cathedral as court organist from 1779 to 1781.
The baptismal record gives his name in Latinized form as Johannes Chrysostomus Wolfgangus Theophilus Mozart. Of these names, the first 2 refer to John Chrysostom, one of the Church Fathers, and they were names not employed in everyday life.
The 4th name, Theophilus, meaning beloved of God in Greek, was variously translated in Mozart's lifetime as Amadeus Latin, Gottlieb German, and Amédée French.
Mozart's father Leopold announced the birth of his son in a letter with the words, "The boy is called Johannes Chrysostomus." Wolfgang Gottlieb Mozart himself preferred to use the 3rd name, and he also took a fancy to Amadeus over the years. Leopold was the concertmaster at the Salzburg court of the Prince Archbishop.
The Mozart family lived in a flat on the 3rd floor consisting of a kitchen, a small room, a living room, a bedroom, where Amadeus was born, and a study.
Anna Maria Warburg Mozart née Pertl, 1720–1778, was the mother of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
This is the historic center of the city of Salzburg.
Here is the location of Salzburg and Vienna in present-day Austria, close to the border with Germany.
The straight-line distance from Salzburg to Vienna is 156 miles or 252 kilometers. Of course, by road it is much longer than that.
This is a plaque on a wall outside Mozart's birthplace at Treatigas 9 in Salzburg, Austria. It reads Mozart's birth house, Mozart Museum. W.A. Mozart was born in this house on 27th of January 1756.
Wolfgang's only sibling who survived past birth was an older sister, Maria Anna, nicknamed Nannerl, who was 5 years older than Wolfgang.
Mozart's father Leopold Mozart, 1719–1787, was one of Europe's leading music teachers.
His influential textbook, A Treatise on the Fundamental Principles of Violin Playing, was published in 1756, the year of Wolfgang's birth.
Leopold Mozart was deputy Kapellmeister to the court orchestra of the Prince Archbishop of Salzburg, and a prolific and successful composer of instrumental music.
Leopold gave up composing when his son's outstanding musical talents became evident.
Wolfgang's talents first came to light when he was about 3 years old.
Leopold, proud of Wolfgang's achievements, gave him intensive musical training, including instruction in clavier, violin, and organ.
Leopold was Wolfgang's only teacher in his earliest years.
When Mozart's sister, Maria Anna Nannerl, was 7 years old, Leopold Mozart, her father, began to teach her how to play the clavier. Initially she had seemed a potential child prodigy.
Here is Leopold Mozart with his child prodigies, Wolfgang and Maria Anna. Leopold took both children, Maria Anna and Wolfgang, on tours to many cities, such as Vienna and Paris, to exploit their talents.
In the early days, Maria Anna sometimes received top billing on these tours, and she was noted as an excellent harpsichord player and pianist.
However, ultimately her talents were overshadowed by those of her younger brother.
Although Maria Anna was a talented musician in her own right, often accompanying Wolfgang during his tours, she was not noted as a composer.
So, Wolfgang wrote many piano pieces, in particular duets, so his sister could play alongside him.
Wolfgang respected her talents and believed she could succeed as a music teacher or player in Vienna. But her early promise was never fully realized, although she did become a famous musician in 18th-century Europe.
Although Wolfgang rebelled from their father, Maria Anna remained primarily under her father's direction.
Because of this, as well as due to contemporary views of women, her father decided that Wolfgang should be the focus, and her goal should become a suitable marriage.
To assure she married someone respectable, he refused her own choices of spouses and selected a wealthy magistrate, Johann Baptist Franz von Berchtold zu Sonnenberg, for her instead.
Added to that, Her brother's rebelliousness and marriage to Constanze Weber seemed to have estranged the two. After her father died, they resumed contact, but the conversations were formal and concerned estate matters.
Her life revolved around a husband she did not love, one surviving child, and a teaching career in Salzburg, a town she disliked.
Maria Anna died in 1829 at the age of 78, outliving Wolfgang by more than 40 years. Wolfgang's first musical activities were learned from a notebook of musical exercises, Poorly Clavecin, composed by his father Leopold for Maria Anna Nannerl.
A note by Leopold in Maria Anna's music book states that little Wolfgang had learned several of the pieces at the age of 4.
Mozart's first compositions, a small andante, K1A, and Allegro, K1B, were written in 1761, when he was 5 years old.
This is Wolfgang's first composition at age 5 years old.
Here is Mozart at 5 years old.
The years of travel. During his early years, Wolfgang and his father made several European journeys, beginning with an exhibition at age 6 in 1762 at the court of the Elector of Bavaria in Munich, and then in the same year at the Imperial Court in Vienna and Prague.
Leopold felt Salzburg is too small of a town. We need to travel to the big cities to seek status, recognition, and fortune.
The father and the son had two very different goals.
In 1762, Leopold Mozart with his two child prodigies embarked on their first journey for a concert at the court of the Bavarian Elector Maximilian II in Munich.
Mozart timeline 1756. Mozart is born on January 27, 1761. First composition 1762. Age 6. First trip to Munich to perform in the royal court 1762. Also at age 6. First trip to Vienna, a concert for Empress Maria Theresa.
In the autumn of 1762, on their first journey to Vienna, Wolfgang gave a concert in the presence of the Habsburg Empress Maria Theresa.
This is Habsburg Emperor Francis and Empress Maria Theresa.
This is Empress Maria Theresa in 1762.
The Schweigringen Palace in Vienna, where Mozart and Maria Anna gave a concert for Empress Maria Theresa during their first tour of Vienna in 1762.
Many years later in 1786, a musical contest between Mozart and composer Salieri was held in the orangery of this same palace.
1762 Wolfgang and Maria Anna performed for Empress Maria Theresa in Vienna.
Leopold, wow! The Empress gave me 100 ducats for Wolfgan's performance.
Mozart, 6 or 7 years old, wow! The Empress gave me this beautiful lavender coat for my performance.
Wolfgang in a gala costume, probably painted by Pietro Antonio Lorenzoni, 1763. The costume was a gift of the Empress Maria Theresa.
Here is a timeline for Mozart's life from age 7 through 12. We note almost continuous touring during this time period, including 3 trips to Vienna.
In 1763, Leopold, Wolfgang's father with both his children, begins a long tour of Western Europe. The concert tour spanned 3.5 years, taking them to the courts of Munich, Mannheim, Paris, and London.
During their concerts, Maria Anna, Nannerl, and Wolfgang are acclaimed as musical geniuses, even at the French, English and Dutch courts.
During this trip Mozart met a great number of musicians and acquainted himself with the works of other great composers.
From a newspaper article in 1763.
Without contradiction, the little German boy Wolfgang Mozart, a boy, 8 years old, who has and indeed very justly raised the admiration not only of the greatest men, but also of the greatest musicians in Europe.
The many long and arduous trips throughout Europe were very difficult for the children.
In particular, Wolfgang suffered from rheumatic fever.
In 1764, 2 sonatas for harpsichord and violin, the first works attributed to Mozart, are published in Paris.
This is the title page of Mozart's first publication.
This is Mozart at the age of 8.
During his stay in London, Wolfgang writes his first 3 symphonies in July 1765. The Mozarts leave London, travel through France, Belgium, Holland and Switzerland, and arrive back in Salzburg in November 1766.
This concert's announcement reads, "Concert on the harpsichord by Master Mozart, who was a real prodigy of nature. He is but 7 years of age. Plays anything at first sight."
While in London, Mozart meets Johann Christian Bach. Bach's work is often taken to be an inspiration for Mozart's music.
Leopold and Wolfgang went again to Vienna in late 1767, and remained there until December 1768.
On this trip, first Wolfgang, then his sister Maria Anna Nannerl fall seriously ill with smallpox, and his healing was believed by Leopold as proof of God's plans concerning the child.
This is Mozart in Verona, 1770.
In 1769, at age 13, Mozart is appointed third concertmaster of the Salzburg Court Orchestra, however, with no pay.
Here is a timeline of Mozart's life from age 13 through 16. We see that this includes 3 trips to Italy together with an audience with Pope Clement XIV.
After spending a year at home in Salzburg, in December 1769, Leopold and Wolfgang begin the first of 3 trips to Italy.
They travel to Verona, Milan, Florence and Rome, then on to Naples, and finally return again to Rome. A highlight of the Italian journey, now an almost legendary tale, occurred when he heard Gregorio Allegri's Miserere once in performance in the Sistine Chapel, then wrote it out in its entirety from memory, only returning to correct minor errors, thus producing the first illegal copy of this closely guarded property of the Vatican.
Back in Salzburg in 1771, Mozart composes the opera Ascanio in Alba to celebrate the wedding of Ferdinand of Austria. His hope for an appointment at the Habsburg court in Milan turns out, however, to be in vain.
Mozart made 3 trips to Italy in the period from 1769 to 1773. During this period, Mozart was commissioned to compose 3 operas: Materdate Re di Ponto, 1770, Ascanio in Alba, 1771, and Lucio Silla, 1772, all of which were performed in Milan.
Mitridate was Mozart's first major opera.
The first performance of Wolfgang's opera seria Mitridate, Re di Ponto, or Mitridates, King of Pontus, was at the Teatro Regio Ducale in Milan. Here is a timeline of Mozart's life from age 16 through 22. We see that there is another tour of Europe, this time including Paris.
In 1772, Wolfgang is appointed Concertmeister, or concertmaster, of the court chapel in Salzburg and obtains a regular pay.
Even a third journey to Vienna in 1773 does not achieve the hoped-for appointment to the imperial court in the Austrian capital, and they return again to Salzburg.
As a result of his extensive travels, Wolfgang now speaks 4 languages.
In 1777, Mozart is dismissed from his position with the archbishop. Accompanied by his mother, Mozart began a long tour of Europe that included Munich, Mannheim and Paris. In Munich, Wolfgang once again tries, unsuccessfully, to obtain a secure court employment.
While in Mannheim, Wolfgang falls in love with the singer Aloysia Weber.
This is Aloysia Weber as Zameyer in the opera Zameyer Azer in 1784.
In spring of 1778, Mozart and his mother leave Mannheim for Paris, where many of Wolfgang's works are performed. Among others the Symphonie in D major No. 31, Paris.
Mozart was unhappy in Paris, and felt that the Parisians didn't fully appreciate his talents.
During his unsuccessful visit to Paris, Wolfgang's mother died in 1778. He returns to Salzburg deeply affected by her death.
He passed through Mannheim, where he meets again Aloysia Weber, who, however, rejects him. He was to marry her sister Constanze 4 years later in Vienna.
In 1779, Mozart is appointed once again as court organist in Salzburg.
In 1780, Mozart meets the actor, singer, poet and director Emanuel Schikaneder, who was in Salzburg with his theater company. He was to collaborate with Schikaneder in the writing of the opera, The Magic Flute.
Here is Mozart at 24 years old in 1780.
In 1781, the opera Idomenia Re di Crete, Idomenia, King of Crete, premiered in Munich. This is regarded as Mozart's first great opera. Here is a timeline of Mozart's life of ages 25 and 26. This is one of the most productive periods of his life.
In 1781, well employed by the Prince Archbishop Colloredo, Mozart was called to Vienna for the coronation of the new emperor.
Mozart liked Vienna very much and thought that Vienna was the place to be. Salzburg was much too provincial for Mozart, and he didn't want to be under the controlling influence of his father.
Vienna, the place to be.
This is Vienna,
In Vienna in 1781, Wolfgang gets in touch with the Weber family who had moved to Vienna in 1779.
And falls in love with Aloysia's younger sister, Constanze.
Wolfgang is unhappy in the service of the Prince Archbishop Colloredo, because the Archbishop does not fully understand Mozart's musical ambitions.
When they returned to Salzburg, Mozart, who was then Concertmeister, became increasingly difficult, not wanting to follow the whims of the Archbishop relating to musical affairs.
Expressing these views, Mozart soon fell out of the Archbishop's favor. So, in 1781, after a final disagreement with the Prince Archbishop Colloredo, Mozart resigned from his position.
Mozart returns to Vienna to settle there and develop his own freelance career.
Especially after its aristocracy began to take an interest in him.
Mozart was the first freelance composer in Vienna's thriving economy. This was at a time when other musicians were employed by the royal courts, nobility, and wealthy patrons.
Mozart's ambition was fame, honor, and wealth.
On August 4, 1782, against his father's wishes, Wolfgang marries Constanze Weber. This is Constanze Weber Mozart.
Although they had 6 children, only 2 survived infancy: Carl Thomas, 1784 to 1858, and Franz Xaver Wolfgang, 1791 to 1844. Neither of these sons married or had children who reached adulthood.
Franz Xaver Wolfgang Mozart was later a minor composer himself.
The new emperor, Joseph II, instituted liberal reforms in 1781, and wanted a particularly German form of opera, sung in German, in contrast to the Italian dominance in opera.
Habsburg Emperor Joseph II ruled the vast Austria-Hungarian Empire from the capital at Vienna. Although German was the dominant language, many other languages and ethnic groups were within this very extensive empire.
This is the Austria-Hungarian Habsburg Empire, with Vienna, its capital city.
In order to be considered a success in Vienna at this time, one had to write operas. In 1782, the Singspiel Die Entführung aus dem Serail, The Abduction from the Seraglio, debuts to astounding acclaim.
A Singspiel has both spoken as well as parts that are sung, unlike the classical Italian operas. This is a distant predecessor of the modern-day Broadway musicals.
Mozart's wife, Constanze, was part of the opera as a singer.
We will now see a clip of the Turkish finale from the movie Amadeus. Mozart's opera, The Abduction from the Seraglio, was a great success. Mozart then began a series of concerts, at which he premiered his own piano concertos as director of the ensemble, and as a soloist.
This same year of 1782, Mozart composed his first string quartet, which he dedicated to Joseph Haydn in 1785. Mozart fails again to secure a court appointment in Vienna, and continues as a freelance composer.
Mozart's study of Bach and Handel resulted in a number of compositions imitating the Baroque style and later had a powerful influence on his music, as for example in Die Zauberflöte, the Magic Flute, and the finale of Symphony No. 41.
In 1783, Wolfgang and Constanze visited Leopold in Salzburg. But the visit was not a success, as his father was not fond of Constanze.
Wolfgang featured Constanze as a lead female solo voice,
hoping to endear her to his father's affection.
Maria Anna Nannerl. Mozart was envious of her younger brother.
In 1781, Wolfgang and Constanze returned to Vienna.
In his early Vienna years, Mozart met Joseph Haydn and the two composers became friends.
Mozart dedicated 6 quartets to Haydn. When Haydn visited Vienna, they sometimes played together in an impromptu string quartet.
Haydn was soon in awe of Mozart and told Leopold, "Before God and as an honest man I tell you that your son is the greatest composer known to me either in person or by name. He has taste and, furthermore, the most profound knowledge of composition."
In the period 1782 to 1785, Mozart put on a series of concerts in which he appeared as soloist in his piano concertos, considered among his greatest works.
These concerts were financially successful.
After 1785, Mozart performed far less and wrote only a few concertos. It is thought that he may have suffered from hand injuries.
Another possibility is that the fickle public ceased to attend the concerts in the same numbers.
Here is a timeline of Mozart's life from age 30 to 35, which includes the composition of 4 of his most well-known operas.
In 1783, Mozart met Lorenzo da Ponte, and together they worked on librettos for 3 very successful operas.
The Marriage of Figaro, followed by Così Fan Tutte and Don Giovanni. Die Zauberflöte, or the Magic Flute, Mozart's last opera, includes Masonic themes and allegory.
Starting in 1784, Mozart compiles a catalogue of all my works. His son Carl Thomas is born.
During the years 1784 to 1787 he lived in a lavish 7-room apartment, which may be visited today at Domgasse 5, behind St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna, and now referred to as the Figaro Haus.
This is the only one of Mozart's Viennese residences still in existence. He lived in the first-floor apartment of this house, which is now a museum.
It was here, in 1786, that Mozart composed the opera The Marriage of Figaro,
with libretto by Lorenzo da Ponte.
This is an announcement for the opera Le Nozze di Figaro.
We will now have a short video clip of a song from the opera, The Marriage of Figaro, Voi Che Sapete Che Cosa e Amor, or You Who Know What a Thing Love Is.
The boy Cherubino, whose name means little cherub, is infatuated with an older woman, the Countess. He is really not at all sure whether she would ever reciprocate the love that he offers her. But he recklessly tests the waters by singing to her a song, sung by Maria Ewing, that he has composed for her and her alone. In 1787, Wolfgang and Constanze attend the acclaimed performance of the Leonozzi di Figaro in Vienna, and in the autumn they travel to Prague for the premiere of the opera Don Giovanni.
In that same year of 1787, Wolfgang's father Leopold Mozart died in Salzburg.
In 1787 Mozart receives his long-sought-after appointment as imperial chamber composer at the court of the Emperor Joseph II.
Also, in 1787 Mozart writes the famous serenade, Eine kleine Nachtmusik.
In Prague, Don Giovanni premiered in 1787 at the Estates Theatre.
The Estates Theatre is the only opera house still standing that Mozart performed in.
In May 1788, the Opera Don Giovanni opened in Vienna. In this same year Mozart composes the last of his three great symphonies, number 39, number 40, and number 41 Jupiter.
This is the Estates Theatre, in Prague.
We will now have a short video clip from the Opera Don Giovanni of La Chiedere and La Mano, or There We Will Give Each Other Our Hands.
Quel casinetto è mio, soli saremo, e la gioiello mio ci sposeremo, ci darem la mano, la mi dirai di sì, vedi non è lontano, partiam ben mio da qui. Vorrei e non vorrei, mi trema un poco il cuore, felice per sarei, ma può burlarmi ancor, ma può burlarmi ancor. Vieni, mio bel diletto, mi fa pietà, ma sento, io canterò tua sorte. Questo non son più forte, non son più forte, non son più forte. Vieni, vieni, ci darem la mano. Vorrei e non vorrei, la mi dirai di sì. Mi trema un poco il cuore, ci alben mio da qui. Può burlarmi ancora, mia pietà, ma sento, questo non son più forte, non son più forte, non son più forte. Andiam,
We will now have a video clip from the Opera Don Giovanni of Madame Köchel Catalogue e Questo, or My Dear Lady. This is the list.
Voi non foste e non sarete nella prima, nell'ultima. Guardate, questo non picciol libro è tutto pieno dei nomi di sue belle. Ogni villa, ogni borgo, ogni paese è testimon di sue donnesche imprese. Madamina, Il catalogo è questo, delle belle che amò il padron mio, un catalogo che ho fatto io. Osservate, leggete con me, osservate, leggete con me. In Italia 640, in Lamagna 231, 100 in Francia e Turchia 91, ma in Spagna son già 1300. 1300. E va tra queste contadine, cameriere cittadine, ma contesse baronesse, marchesani, principesse, vandolli, d'ogni grado, d'ogni forma, d'ogni età, d'ogni forma, d'ogni età. In Italia 640, in Lavagna 231, 100 in Francia, in Turchia 91, ma in Spagna son già 1300. Ma tra queste contadine, cameriere cittadine, ma contesse, baronesse, marchesane, principesse, i bandogli d'ogni grado, d'ogni forma, d'ogni età, d'ogni forma, d'ogni età, d'ogni forma, d'ogni età. Bella bionda e la l'usanza di lodar la gentilezza nella bruna, la costanza nella bianca, la dolcezza. Vuol l'inverno la grassotta, vuol d'estate la magrotta e la grande.
And finally, we will now have a video clip from the opera Don Giovanni Batti Battio bel Musetto, or Beat Me. Beat Me. Oh handsome Musetto. This portrays the meeting between Mozart and Beethoven.
A famous story asserts that, after the only meeting between the two composers, Mozart noted
that Beethoven would give the world something to talk about.
Mozart's opera Così Fan Tutte premiered in 1790 at the Burgtheater in Vienna. Composed on an assignment from Emperor Joseph II, it does not however obtain much success.
This is Così Fan Tutte.
Mozart wrote La Clemenza di Tito for the festivities accompanying Leopold II's coronation in November 1790. Mozart obtained this commission after Antonio Salieri had allegedly rejected it.
At the beginning of May 1791, Mozart obtains the unpaid post of Cathedral Kapellmeister, Master of the Chapel, at St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna.
The opera The Magic Flute is based on the text by Emanuel Schikaneder, and premiered in Vienna in 1791.
We will now have a video clip from the opera The Magic Flute of the Birdcatcher Song.
What's that noise?
That's my name, and catching birds, well, that's my game. My snares are laid, my sights are set, I whistle them into my net. My life's my own, so bright and free, 'cause all the birds belong to me. If only there were traps for girls, I'd catch a dozen by their curls. I'm Papageno, that's my name, and catching birds, well, that's my game. And when I get them nice and plump, I'll trade them for a sugar lump. Then give it to my favorite one, and woo her till her heart is won. Then snuggled in my nest we lie, and gently rock to a lullaby.
You there! Tell me, friend, what are you, a bird?
No, a bird catcher.
This is a German postage stamp issued in 1991 commemorating the 200th anniversary of the premiere of The Magic Flute.
Mozart earned about 50,000 florins per year, equivalent to at least $150,000, which placed him within the top 1% of late 18th century wage earners.
But he could not manage his wealth. His life was occasionally fraught with financial difficulty.
Because of his frequent journeys and his passion for gambling, Mozart continuously asks his friends to lend him money. Though the extent of this difficulty has often been romanticized and exaggerated, he nonetheless did resort to borrowing money from close friends, some debts remaining unpaid even to his death.
His mother wrote, "When Wolfgang makes new acquaintances, he immediately wants to give his life and property to them. His impulsive largesse in spending often had him asking for loans.
Many of his begging letters survive, but they are evidence not so much of poverty as of his habit of spending more than he earned.
Antonio Salieri was born in Lenago, Italy, and was a composer and conductor.
As the Austrian Imperial Kapellmeister from 1788 to 1824, he was one of the most important and famous musicians of his time.
There is a legend that Salieri was very jealous of the young upstart Mozart.
However, there is no evidence that Salieri was in any way responsible for his death.
That story was due to a play written in 1830 by the famous Russian author and poet, Alexander Pushkin, titled Mozart and Salieri.
This was an entirely fictional account and not based on any factual evidence.
Then in 1979 the stage play Amadeus by Peter Shaffer was inspired by Pushkin's play.
After that, in 1984 the movie Amadeus came out based on the play.
Although that movie won 8 Oscars, what it said about Salieri was not accurate. Now we have the final year of Mozart's tragically short life.
In 1791, the Count of Walsegstapak, acting anonymously through an intermediary, commissions a requiem mass for his deceased wife Anna,
with the intent to acclaim it as his own. Most if not all of the music for the Requiem Mass was written while Mozart was still in good health.
Final illness and death. On November 20th, Mozart takes to his bed. Until the end he tries to work on the unfinished Requiem.
With the onset of Mozart's illness, he had largely ceased work on his final composition, the Requiem, some days earlier. Popular belief has it that Mozart was thinking of his own impending death while writing this piece, and even that a messenger from the afterworld commissioned it.
The actual cause of Mozart's death is also a matter of conjecture. His death record does not provide a description that would identify the cause as would be diagnosed in modern medicine.
Mozart died at approximately 1 a.m. on December 5, 1791 in Vienna.
The modest funeral took place 2 days later in St. Mark's or Friedhof Cemetery, without his wife's presence, as was the custom of the time.
The funeral mass was celebrated in the Crucifix Chapel of Vienna's cathedral. The cause of his death has never been cleared. The possibilities are tuberculosis, rheumatic fever, a heart failure, excessive bloodletting and poisoning by mercury. Even the hypothesis of murder, which always comes up, has however never been proved.
A younger composer, and Mozart's pupil at the time, was engaged by Constanze to complete the Requiem.
Mozart's final illness and death are difficult topics for scholars, obscured by romantic stories and replete with conflicting theories. Scholars disagree about the cause of decline in Mozart's health, particularly at what point, or if at all, Mozart became aware of his impending death and whether this awareness influenced his final works. The Romantic view holds that Mozart declined gradually, and that his outlook and compositions paralleled this decline.
Because he was buried in an unmarked grave, it has been popularly assumed that Mozart was penniless and forgotten when he died.
Mozart was not buried in a mass grave for paupers but in a regular communal grave according to the 1784 laws in Austria.
In fact, though he was no longer as fashionable in Vienna as before. He continued to have a well-paid job at court and received substantial commissions from more distant parts of Europe, Prague in particular.
In 1809, Constanze married Danish diplomat Georg Nikolaus von Nissen, 1761 to 1826.
Nissen was a great admirer of Mozart, and wrote a biography of Mozart.
Nissen did not live to see his biography printed, and Constanze finished it. The biography was published in 1828.
A Center for Mozart Research, established in 1880, is committed to preserving the composer's legacy. The Mozarteum houses 2 concert halls and a library with more than 30,000 volumes, including the music and letters of the Mozart family.
This is Theater am der Wien in Vienna.
Emanuel Schikaneder, the librettist of the Magic Flute, and the first actor to play Papageno, built the theater 10 years after Mozart's death.
The Theater in der Wien stages new productions of 5 of Mozart's most important operas.
In the decades after Mozart's death there were several attempts to catalogue his compositions, but it was not until 1862 that Ludwig von Kerschel succeeded in this enterprise.
This is the beginning of the Köchel Catalogue with Mozart's earliest works. The catalogue has undergone 6 revisions, labeling the works from K1 to K626.
Many of Mozart's famous works are referred to by their Köchel Catalogue number. For example, the Piano Concerto in A major, Piano Concerto No. 23, is often referred to simply as K488 or KV488.
This is the end of the Köchel Catalogue with Mozart's last compositions.
A monument was built on the presumed gravesite following the 100th anniversary of Mozart's birth.
Although the original grave in the St. Mark's Cemetery was lost, memorial gravestones, or cenotaphs, have been placed there and in the central Friedhof.
This is a notice of Mozart's death 1791 in his 36th year. The celebrated John Chrysostom Wolfgang Theophilus Mozart, Maestro di Cappella to the Imperial Court of Vienna. He was born at Salzburg, January 17, 1756.
This is the gravestone of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. A musical journey. Coming next, Stephen Collins Foster. I'm always available to answer your questions at drsydney22@gmail.com. Mozart, Table of Contents.